If you're able to, please go ahead and come on camera. We'd love to see your face. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what's going on in the chat box, but you know what? Sometimes I learned it's better not to ask questions. Just let it be. All right, got 10 more seconds till it's 10:31. Let me just make sure everybody gets in the room. Thank you all for being on time. All right, we're officially at 10:31. So if you're here, you're on time. Thank you again. Appreciate you all being here this morning. I know a lot has gone on since the last time we had class on Monday. I feel like that was only 3 days ago, but I feel like it was a month ago. But we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. Today's associate instructor is Mohammed. Mohammed, are you here today? Mohammed, you're on mute. Mohammed, you there? Assistant instructor. You're making me look bad.
Hi. Good morning.
It's okay. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you so much for being our assistant instructor. Let's start off by asking a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, Mohammed?
I'm originally from West Africa.
Cool.
Yeah, like Senegal or Gambia.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved to New York like 2014.
You were in New York in 2014, or when you were 14?
No, when I was 14 and I came here in 2014.
Okay. Very cool. And why did you join Europe, Mohammed?
Um, honestly, it was recommended by my cousin,
Mm-hmm.
who believe like who knows that I love technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like working on my hand, those
Right.
kinds. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So it was recommended by your relative. I love it. Awesome. And what's a fun fact about you? Something interesting.
Um, I'm a gamer and
Okay.
I play soccer. I love soccer game as well.
Awesome. So you like video games and you like playing soccer.
Yeah.
Awesome. And who's your favorite soccer team?
Real Madrid.
Real
And
Madrid.
yeah,
Okay.
my favorite player is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. That is definitely a fun fact. Thank you so much for sharing, Mohammed. Now, what is a question that you want to pose to our class this morning?
Um, if you had a chance um, to go back in the year, which year would you choose?
Oh, are you asking like the year, like since you've been alive, or any year at all?
Like since uh, let's say like since 2000 from
Since 2000. Okay, so from the year 2000 to now 2020, if you could go back to a certain year, what year would you go back to and why? Mohammed, what year would you go back to?
2016.
Okay, why 2016?
Um, I was junior in high school.
Okay.
Um, 2016, like there's so much fun that I had.
Mhm.
Wish I could go back to that.
Mhm. Yeah. I remember to put into the chat box why you want to go back to that year. So you want to go back to 2016 because you had a lot of fun that year, and that was, it'd be nice to relive that. Yeah. And my answer would probably be, here's my follow-up question, Mohammed. Do you have like the knowledge that you have now? Like you'd go back to that year, but you would know what you know now about like your life and how it went.
um, honestly,
You didn't think about that deep.
yeah, but I might make some changes.
Hmm.
Honestly, um, it's decision that I made that I didn't know. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't have
Gotcha.
the knowledge.
Yeah. So you don't have the prior knowledge. You just go back. Okay. All right. Excellent. So thank you, Mohammed. Thank you everybody for putting it in the chat box. I'd probably go back to 2000 and It was 2005. That was the year I graduated from high school. I know that was a really long time ago for some of you in the room, but it'd be nice, to go back and be like, wow, I'm 18 again. I'm fresh out of high school. I'm starting off my life as an adult man now. This is kind of cool, but that's probably what I would choose. So I just put it in the chat box, but I want to talk about what did we discuss on Monday. So Mohammed, thanks for that question. If you don't mind raising your hand and sharing some of the themes that we talked about um, on Monday, we can just refresh ourselves. I know, like I said, a lot has happened since Monday, but I want to just remind us what we discussed. And Amna started pre-K in 2005. Yeah, thanks for that, Amna. Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you were starting pre-K or in elementary school around then, and that's okay. That's just how life goes. And one day you'll be talking to a group of people, and they'll say, "Oh man, I was 5 when you graduated high school," and you'll be like, "Oh wait, what?" That's how it goes. All right, Andre.
Um, I think we were talking about creep scope. Not sure if that was the right term.
Flip those words.
Oh, creep.
Scope creep, exactly. Do you remember what scope creep was, Andre?
I believe it was supposed to be changes that's added or like small what is it, like small installations to the project as it goes along.
Exactly, Andre. You hit the nail on the head. Scope creep is when you have the statement of work. This is what you're going to accomplish, and then the project sponsor starts putting in new, ideas that he or she or they want implemented that weren't a part of the original project. It's called scope creep. Thanks, Andre. Appreciate that. David, what else did we discuss on Monday?
Hey, good morning, everyone. So we talked about the strength, the weakness, opportunities, and threats.
Mm-hmm.
Want me to define like at least one of them?
Or define all 4 of them if you want.
All right. So the strength is the advantage that you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
Weakness is a disadvantage that you can control. Opportunities are advantages you don't control, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
And threats are disadvantages you don't and you can't control.
Yeah, excellent, David. Thank you. So we did a SWOT analysis on owning a car in New York City, and we did a SWOT analysis on being a Europe participant. That's what we studied on Monday. Great. And I see Jesus. You put problem statement and scope. Let's talk about that second term. What is scope in project management? If someone mentions the scope of work, what are they referencing?
I guess I could just jump in.
Yeah, please.
So basically, I guess scope is almost like, I guess, right? You're mentioning objectives of the project, and also I believe there's more to it, but I'll be honest, I kind of don't have it in mind right now. But I
It's
know
okay.
it does
No.
involve like objectives.
Yeah, I mean, you essentially nailed it. It's the objectives. It's how you're going to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. It's the goals. That's the scope of work that's required, or SOW for short. You'll sometimes hear project managers use. Last thing I want to discuss before we talk about the work breakdown structure is what's a kickoff meeting? Who can raise their hand and tell me what a kickoff meeting is in project management? Do you remember that talking about that a little bit on Monday? Yes, Hannah.
Hey, good morning. So a kickoff meeting was the type of level setting that we said that goes on in project management. So it's basically a time where everyone gets on the same page and they are allowed to communicate any problems they have, or they can just get to know each other at that point.
Yes, absolutely, Hannah. Thank you so much. And follow-up question for anybody who wants to raise their hand. Why is having a kickoff meeting important? Why not just send an email and say, okay, we're starting the project? Why is the kickoff meeting, that 30 to 60-minute level setting meeting that Hannah just described, critical in the success of a project? Yes, Majida.
It's important because you need to first because having the team together, one, it depends on how big how much you actually have to get, because the whole purpose to have the team, getting the team energized and establishing common purposes, and even the team leader. So having knowing who the team leader is, for if you're like, let's just say you're not the team leader, so like knowing who you have to go to and actually like get to know what, like if you have any problems or anything, you could go to them. And just understanding and having like the energy that you have within that meeting, like just getting the overall setting and everything. Sorry, I forgot.
No, you did great, Majida. Thank you so much. You want to have the energy, you want to have the cohesiveness, you want to know who is who on the project. There's just something good about seeing people, even if it's virtually, just seeing them, hearing their voice, and knowing who's on the project together is much better than just sending out an email. Yeah, Mohammed, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I was gonna add to what Mark says. I think sometimes email can be misunderstood. The communication is not the same as in person. Sometimes people don't even open the email to check. I think it's great to get everyone together.
Yes, absolutely. Mohammed, you're 100% right. Not everybody looks at email. Not everybody interprets emails well. So to just be in the room together to discuss what's going on, a kickoff meeting is a very essential point of having a successful project. So the first thing I want to do before we talk about a requirement gathering is I want to discuss last night's deliverable. I did spend a little bit of time this morning, like looking through some of your deliverables. Some of you did this correctly. Some of you struggled a little bit. So I'm going to just share an example that I also emailed to everybody, and some of you might have saw it, some of you might have not. But this is kind of what I'm looking for this deliverable. So if some of you want to go back and resubmit, you can. And of course, I'll take into account that it was an async day yesterday. It wasn't in class instruction. It was a day after the election. So if you're just like, hey, I didn't do my best work yesterday, that's fine. Just submit it again, and I'll grade the most recent one that you submit, keeping in mind everything else. So, Mohammed, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So here's like the project that I'm working on for my task, because I want to keep. I want it to be fair to everybody that like you're doing this and I'm doing it as well. Maybe bigger. Some see people like squinting their eyes, and I don't want you to strain your eyes. So here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Here's the problem statement. Here's the problem goal. Here's the objectives. All right. So misspelled sanitation. So what I want to do is I want to break down all of this from, okay, I want to, create a tap of LaCroix, which is a form of seltzer water that our company drinks hundreds of cans of every single day. How do I break that down into smaller steps? And this, just back it up a little bit, is an example of a work breakdown structure. Now this right here, I emailed to you, and it's also in Schoology. And what I would do if I were you is I would just take this exact same thing, and I would literally just delete what I wrote and then put in your project. Okay. That's what I would do. That's the easiest way. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't make more work for yourself. But I look at this as there's main tasks that need to happen. All right. Like we need to connect with the company. How are we going to, talk with them, negotiate prices, set up a purchase order, get the tap to come on a recurring basis. How are we going to figure all of that out? That's a pretty big task to do underneath this larger project. Next thing to figure out is where we're going to place this tap in the office. Where's it going to go? Is it going to go in the kitchen? Well, do we have a water line to go there? Can we do the carbonation there? Is it going to go, in the lobby? Like, where are we going to put this thing? Sanitation. How do we keep it clean? How do we make sure people are using it properly? How are we going to roll it out that we're no longer doing cans of seltzer water? We're doing a tap, which is on this location. How are we going to do maintenance? If things break or go wrong, do we have somebody that we can call that can fix it quickly? And the last thing, of course, is cost. Like, how much is it going to cost to install? What are the ongoing costs with it? And what's the cost benefit analysis? So in a sense, how are we going to justify this to our project sponsor, which will be, our senior leaders? Hey, by us doing $10,000 up front for this LaCroix tap, we're going to save $100,000 over the course of the next, 2 years to figure all that stuff out. So this is an example of a work breakdown structure. So do me a favor, raise your hand if you have like a comment on this, like what's something you like about it or something you have a hard time understanding. and I'm happy to field any questions because I do understand we didn't have class yesterday. So there wasn't an opportunity for me to just, answer any questions or comments on how to do this. So the first hand I saw was Ashley Bafong.
Good morning. So after I watched the video, I feel like I have more questions than I did before I watched the video.
Okay.
I know like you have to break up the, I guess, objectives into like sections and then subsections.
Yep.
And I just feel like I didn't know how many things I need. I didn't have that much steps
Right.
like I'm sorry. I was just struggling throughout the whole thing and just hoping that I was gonna pass because I didn't know how to break it down like to the simple steps. And yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, the thing of it is, there is no hard and fast rule for how many sub steps it needs to be. Some of you might remember this from the video, but he asked, how long should a sub step be? It should be anywhere. I think he said between 8 and 80 hours of work. Yeah, the 880 rule. So, like for example, like education on proper use. I mean, that's really stretched for an 8-hour task. That's probably more like a 4-hour task. But just put it there. It helps fill it out. But listen, I'm not gonna be nitpicky. I think I've worked with all of you long enough to know you know how I grade. To me, it's like did you do the work? Then you're gonna be fine. And so I wouldn't stress out about that. But yeah, I am aware obviously that this was an interesting day because I wasn't actually teaching it. You just had to watch a video and perform. So, but that's a good point. So don't feel like you have to fill out every one of these. And if you get to one where you're like, oh gosh, I can only think of one, sub point, just go.
Okay.
Just go like that, and then move this guy, and
Yeah.
and then do it better than I'm doing it right now. But just that's all you have to do. Like, don't feel like it's like it has to look exactly like mine. It doesn't.
Do you
All right.
need 5 to 7 is it activities? Activities?
No, you don't. You just need as many as you need. Yep.
Okay. I think that's where I struggled. Okay, I need 7 and I don't have 7.
Yeah, no, you just need as many as you need. This is just a template. Play around with it, move stuff as you need to. But yeah, it's a really good question. I'm sure a lot of your colleagues were asking the same thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Yes, Moses. You there, Moses? You're on mute.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
So I wanted to ask, I actually ended up using your template that you gave us. To know like how exactly detailed would you like this to be?
In what ways? Like in ways like what should the sub,
Sub. Yes.
Yeah.
Subcategory.
The subcategories. So each one of these gray boxes should be something that's going to take between 8 and 80 hours to complete. Okay. So if like I just to pick on my own, like this one down here, education on proper use, that probably is less than 8 hours to do that. That probably is a very short project to do. So I would just wouldn't necessarily need that one. As long as you have a few subtasks that need to get done, that's good enough. Don't stress yourself out wondering is this too detailed, not detailed enough. As long as you have like a clear breakdown, that's fine.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep, you're welcome. All right. Any other questions on work breakdown structure before we talk about requirement gathering?
Eric,
Yeah, Mohammed.
I think Ashley Ross has question.
Ashley Ross has a question.
Yeah, she said, how will you know if you should submit again or not?
How will you know if you? Sorry, Ashley. Can you come off mute and explain what you mean?
Hi, good morning. So you said that some people struggled and some people did it correctly. So how will you know if you fall in the correct category?
Yeah, if you created a graph that looks like what I just showed, and you have all of your your main projects plus your sub points, you're good. But some people did it like a Word document. That's not a work breakdown structure. Okay. So that's why I want to show you mine. I want to give you a very clear example of how it should be done. But if you did it like what I just showed you, or some people did their own variation of it, then you're fine. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Some people just did like a Word document. That's not a work breakdown structure. That's a little bit different. Cool. All right. By the way, did you guys enjoy the mindset panel yesterday? I thought that was a lot of fun. All right, let's go to the lecture portion of today's lesson. I can pull it up. All right, that's that. That's that. Mohammed, do you see my my screen of how to gather requirements?
No, I'm seeing the same.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, now do you see it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. So requirement gathering and work breakdown structure, they sort of work in tandem with one another. You might have heard him mention it in the video a few times, but how do you know like what needs to get done to complete a task? And that's what we're going to do today. Today's lesson will be pretty simple, pretty cut and dry. It was a pretty crazy week for all of us, so I wanted to be cognizant that we want to just be mindful of what's going on in our country and in our world. So it's going to be pretty easy today. But this is what what it looks like, what requirement gathering looks like. So essentially, you get the problem for the project, you do the charter, the scope, the kickoff meeting, all the things that we discussed on Monday. And what is requirement gathering? It's the process of collecting information to know what does the user need at the very end, okay? Because here's the reality, guys, is like you don't want to create a product or a project where there's not going to be an end user and it's not exactly what they want. Okay, so every single time that a project happens, they're always doing requirement gathering to make sure that they're creating something that the end user wants. Like, do you think the people at Apple just come up with a new iPhone and just guess what the consumer wants? Like, no, of course not. They do surveys, they do interviews, they take people and see how they play with the different technology, they get feedback. And the same with the projects in your career as well, is that you want to get an understanding of like what do people actually want, what's going to make their life better. That's the nature of requirement gathering. All right. Unless we were taking notes, just a reminder that this will be uploaded on Schoology this afternoon, in addition to the lecture if I'm going a little bit fast. But these are sort of the three primary ways you can gather requirements. The first one's in-person, face-to-face interviews. All right, so this is a very time-consuming way to gather requirements. Obviously, because it takes energy and capacity to sit down with somebody, and even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, if you do 100 of those, I mean, do the math. That's a lot of minutes you're spending interviewing people and getting an understanding for what they want. The thing that you want to use in person face to face is if you have a very small, select, concentrated group of people that you're going to gather requirements from, that are going to be using the end product or appreciating the end product. So if you're doing something like releasing a new iPhone, building a new bridge, you're literally going to have hundreds of millions of people that might be impacted by that project. Whereas if you're doing a small thing like something within your team, maybe only 10 people are going to be impacted. So you could do face-to-face interviews. That's much more manageable. The second one is surveys. Ask people kind of what their thoughts are, what do they want to achieve out of this end result. This is probably the most common one. Asking folks what's important to them. And the last one is observation, just observing trends, observing what you're seeing. So for example, say you want to turn a 2-lane highway into a 4-lane highway. Well, why? Well, just go sit on the highway at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning, and you'll see why, because there's a lot of traffic. So it's observation. I don't think you need to take a survey to ask the guy in the car next to you, hey, would you like this to be a 4-lane highway? It's like, yes, I would, because I don't like sitting in traffic. It's just observation. So those are the 3 ways. I'm sorry, there's number 4 there that shouldn't be there. So, but once you've gathered requirements and documented them, you get approvals. This is our next steps. This is our work breakdown structure. This is what the end user ultimately wants. So this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to kind of put this to the test a little bit to see what you think the best way to gather requirements should be. So in the chat box, I want you to do me a favor and answer this question. Would you do interviews? Would you do surveys? Or would you do observations for designing a new gaming app as a side hustle? in the chat box, which one would you do? You're trying to figure out what does the end consumer want? How are you going to figure that out? How are you going to gather requirements? All right, Rahul, you said interview. Do you mind telling us, like, who would you interview if you were going to do this, and like, how would you go about doing that?
Because it's a gaming app as a side hustle, I feel like I need team members I could really trust and I could really know personally their strengths, weaknesses, so I could surround myself with the best team in order to make this app. So that's why I would go for an interview. I know it's a longer process, but since it's a gaming app, I'd be as tedious as possible.
Yeah, so quick follow-up, Rahul. So this is actually for the end user, the people that are going to be using the app at the very end. Would you still do interviews with those people as well?
In that case, then I think I would go with surveys then.
Surveys for them. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Excellent.
because this way, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, so like you're saying, building your team, interviews, but the end user surveys would be your approach. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Rahul. Chelsea, you say observation. How do you think you would manage that as you were designing this gaming app?
Well, you said it's more so for the end users, right? So I was thinking as like most games, when you develop it, you get your beta testers and you can look at how they're playing the game and use that data to determine what's working in the game and what's not. And take those things out for the final version that's going to be released on like the App Store or wherever.
Yeah, I love it, Chelsea. You could also observe like where do people spend the most time? Where do they find the most enjoyable? What's the most interesting to them? And really capitalize on those things. Excellent. Luis, you have your hand up?
Yeah, aren't technically surveys interviews as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the difference between a survey and an interview is like a one-on-one, sitting down with a person, asking them questions. You have the ability to ask follow-up questions pertaining to their answers, whereas surveys are more like the generic, everybody gets the same 5 questions and that's that. So that's the difference. But that is a really good point. Yeah, they're very similar in nature. Of course, surveys are a lot more scalable. You can send out 1,000 surveys in an email. It'd be very hard to interview 1,000 people. So yeah, really good point. Moses?
That would be is just you should past successful games, use that data to develop a beta, and then to further continue developing the game.
Yeah, excellent, Moses. So you took a different approach of observation. You would observe past games that were really popular, like Subway Surfer or Angry Birds or whatever other games there are out there, and say what made these games so engaging. People would download them and spend so much time on them and kind of crack that code. Awesome, Moses. I love it. Majida, then Jalisa.
Would you say that a survey would be better for, like, for example, if you already have an existing game and you're planning on changing some aspects of a game, so a survey would be better for that because that the questions that you have on the survey are targeting only that aspect of the game. Because if you do an interview one-on-one, they'll like people will start taking out like flaws in the regular game itself. So would you say it's better to like, so like if you're making changes to an existing game, do you think an interview would a survey would be better than having an interview?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't really thought about this because I'm imagining for this project, we're still in the planning phase. So this is like a brand new game that nobody's ever played before. What do you think, Machida? How would you approach this if it was like an existing game and you're adding new features? What way would you use it to kind of figure out what the end user wants, interview, surveys, or observation? If it was like a tweak in a game you already have.
So first I would, because it's already an existing game, I would, and like, because if you were to do an interview, everybody would start like throwing out flaws that are already in the existing game,
Right.
not the thing that you're like focusing more on. But prior to it would be like observation to like if you either want to create something new or add something. So observe what needs to be added and then survey after you make the implementations and actually add those changes in, then survey based off the specifications of what you added in there, and then do that survey. That's
Yeah.
how.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you're spot on there. Excellent observation. Jalissa?
Good morning, everyone. So to Moses' point about looking at other successful like apps and things like that, I thought of like immediately how a lot of these companies and apps, a lot of them are using a lot of observation as well because they're kind of like copying off each other. Like if this story from Snapchat was something that like blew up, Instagram now has like stories and YouTube. So it's like, to me, it's like a lot of them use the observation of, like what Moses said, they look at other apps that have successful features and they kind of, I would say, copy those features.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is a lot of observation, which I haven't thought of before, but him pointing that out really like that happens a lot. So I just wanted to bring that up.
There you go, Jalisa. I'm telling you, I see project management in your future. I can totally see you as the boss telling everybody what to do. I see it already. Thank you so much for that comment. Excellent, excellent. Mohammed, did you have your hand up earlier?
Nah, I was gonna add what Magna was saying.
Yeah.
If you play games, 2K with FIFA,
Yep.
each year they send out survey before they bring out the new games to see how people feel about the past 2K.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So like if you took the Scrum approach of designing this game, you do small, iterations of it and keep on getting that rapid feedback and keep on adding to it and tweaking it. Really good point, Mohammed. Excellent. Great. Let's go ahead and keep moving along. And also, this is kind of a funny story, but LinkedIn was trying to pilot stories on their page. And I'm like, this is just so tacky. Just stop with the stories, guys. We have enough stories in our lives. I don't want these stories about what you did at work today. I don't care. So, anyways, poor LinkedIn is just trying to get ahead, and they just can't. All right. Interviews, surveys, or observations. You and your team have been tasked to update the office kitchen. Are you going to interview people? Are you going to survey them? Or are you going to observe them for this project? Ashley Gavin says interview. Excellent. And we'll go to Samaje next. Ashley, do you mind unmuting yourself and think of a question or two that you would ask your colleagues on how we should renovate the kitchen?
I would ask them like what appliances they need the most, and I guess how we can improve the kitchen, like those kinds of questions, just to see where everyone's at and if there's like a general like appliance that everyone's looking for, like a certain kind of like design, then we could like implement it into the new office.
Absolutely, Ashley. I love it. I didn't even think about that. Like what maybe there's something like a blender or like a certain, whatever. People would really like, I really want this because I like to make shakes during the day or something of that sort. So really good point. Yes, Samaje, what approach would you take?
I found this one to be really hard, in my opinion, because it's the office. So it's like you have multiple employees, they all have different styles. So I know from working like in the office or something, people bring in their own things. I think a survey would be better so people can pick and choose what to bring, or I mean, not to bring, how it can be designed. But I feel like this should be for like the people, the higher ups, to decide how it should look, do a one-on-one interview with the higher ups by themselves, I believe.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, I think so. You're saying like interview because essentially they're the ones who are the project sponsors, right? Like they're the ones funding this. Sit down with them and say, hey, what are some things that you would like? And the fact of it is, if you're C-level or a VP or a director, you're probably going to be around longer than the entry level person that's there for a year. So what's it matter what they think?
Exactly.
Samaje, you're so smart. That's a really good point. Thank you. David.
Yeah, I said observation at first because within observation, let's say manager can understand the overall effectiveness of changing one thing in said kitchen. But then I said survey because with the survey, you can have an iteration of the same answers, which can be more effective than an observation because it lets you be more cognizant of what you have to fix, what everybody agrees on.
Yeah, yeah, and great vocab word. The curious thing with survey, David, is what if you like did a survey and let's say I really wanted that Lacroix tap, and you really wanted a blender, and then they did a blender and not the Lacroix tap. Like I'd be mad. I'd be like, what the heck, David? Why didn't you say Lacroix tap too? And it could open a whole can of worms. So to Samaji's point earlier, it's like just talk to the higher ups, let them decide, and the rest of us just have to live with it. So, yep, definitely. And let's see here. Take a look. And Manny, you said as a former cook, I would say observation and interview. How would you approach this project, Manny, as someone who's worked in the culinary industry?
Well, as for me, since I used to work at a kitchen, I would say observation to see, like what people are using most. And from there, I will piggyback to what my colleagues said. Interview, like one-on-one. Let's schedule a meeting. I say, okay, for you, I noticed that you've been using this and this a lot.
Right.
What would you recommend for what will benefit not only you but also your colleagues?
Right.
So especially let's say a person uses, let's say, brings a pasta and makes it themselves.
Okay.
So how would that help them? Like a microwave, like a small stove, like a stove, things like that.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good point for sure. I used to work at a place where they had a whole like oven and everything. We would like make like Thanksgiving dinner at work. It was really nice, but that's not normal. Most people, it's like you get a microwave and that's about all you get. So, and a coffee machine if you're lucky. Awesome. All right, next one. So you're put on a project team to safely bring the team back into the office post COVID-19. Interview, surveys, or observation. What do you think you're going to use for this one as a project manager? Observation, interview, surveys, observation. Oh, interesting. So Pablo, why did you pick those two?
I pick observation because we need to look at like the guidelines that the state would provide for us. And I would do interview because maybe some people might not want to come back even though it can be safe.
Right.
And you would want to interview one by one because if you do a survey, you won't know who's gonna want to come back and who's not gonna want to come back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. That's really good. And Ricky, you put mix of interviews and surveys. How would you determine who got the interview and who got the survey, Ricky?
Hey Eric, so I think I would do for the interviews, I would talk to the higher ups, most of the people that have like project management and things like that. And then for the surveys, I would send it out to the people in their teams, see who they need and who they don't need, how they feel about coming back, and actually asking that survey if they have any other symptoms that with COVID-19 and things like that. Like that, you can weed out who wants to come back, who doesn't, and then you can make a decision on how many people you actually need on the team or things like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ricky. Excellent. Love it. Ashley Ross, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do have my hand up. A quick question. Would you say that an interview is like an open-ended survey? Because I'm having a little trouble like deciding whether an interview or a survey would be better for some of you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like what Luis asked earlier, like what's the difference between these two? So an interview is more like, you and I, Ashley, are gonna like sit down on Zoom and we're gonna spend a few minutes discussing, moving back to the office. And maybe I ask you similar questions to the survey, but really it's a free form conversation where I can ask questions that wouldn't necessarily be on the survey to really get to the root of like what you're thinking as a potential as a colleague potentially going back to the office. I mean, there's some things that surveys just can't answer, right? It's yes or no. It's 4 options. It's whatever. But really, if getting a pulse on a handful of people, which is if to answer this one for me, I would say I would do interviews and surveys, but my interviews would be with people who are the most committed and senior in the organization. Like, what are your thoughts? Because the reality of it is, if you interview your top 10 leaders and all 10 of them say, no, let's not go back to in-person, then there's no point in doing a survey, right? Because it doesn't matter. The answer's already decided. We're not going back. But if it's like 5 and 5, and then so let the staff decide, that's when the survey comes in. Okay, let's send a survey out to our team and see what they think. Okay, is that helpful, Ashley?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. I mean, the reality of it is just interviews, like I said, they just have a time constraint on them. You can't interview, if you have a staff of 1,400 people, like Year Up does, you can't individually interview every single person. But you can send out a survey to 1,400 people and pretty quickly. All right, I think we have one more. So you're at your help desk role in your new job, and you're updating the ticketing service. You're the project lead. How are you going to gather the requirements with people that are going to be using your ticketing service? Everybody on your whole entire company uses the same one, and you're charged with updating that. Are you doing interviews? Are you doing surveys? Are you doing observation? Tiana, you said interviews and observations. Why'd you go that route?
Actually, that's the thing that you would have to like interview people to know they know how to do the updating, ticketing, and observation to see if they know how to do it. Like show examples.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
Tiana.
I picked those two.
Okay, great. And let's take a look here. Yeah, we see survey and observations. Survey's just a no, in my opinion. Samaji, why is it just a no? Because I'm in the same boat as you.
Because I was working, assisting my mom in her office, and she did like the ticketing things before. It was a mess when people like change up the process of everything without like doing the observations. It can become very hectic in the workplace, and it keeps people overwhelmed. So I'd rather it to be observations and asking your colleagues and the employees what they would like. Play around with it first to see if they really like it.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. So one of the things that I would be big on for this one is observation. So to give you a real life case study, we at Year Up use Salesforce. So like some people have to use a lot of its functions, but some people only have to use a few. And Salesforce, you pay for the functions that you use. So what they had done is people like myself who only use maybe 2 or 3 of the functions don't have the same account as those who use every single part. We have a lower paying account because I don't need 100 functions. I need 3, right? So how did they realize that? They took someone like myself. They said, okay, open up your Salesforce, do a share on Zoom and show me what you do. I do X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now they know every single academic instructor only uses X, Y, and Z. And I'm sure they did more than one. They probably did 5 or 10, but it's enough of a sample size to realize, okay, like we don't, need all of them, as opposed to doing a survey where they send that out to 100 instructors and they're like, hey, which ones do you use on Salesforce? I'm like, I don't know. I have to like go back and look, and I'm busy. I got a grade. I'm getting emails. I got office hours. Like, I'm not gonna fool with this. Like, delete. That's me, right? So like they chose for us, and I thought that was very helpful. So good point, Samaje. So any questions before we take a break on how to gather requirements? Is everyone clear on how that works? So a very helpful tool in project management to know what you need to do and what the goal is. So let's go ahead and let's come back at 11:20, and then we'll do our next part of today's class. All right, folks, it is now 11:20. Thank you all for being back on time. Please go back on camera if you're able. We are going to do a small breakout scenario, and I want you to put into practice what we've discussed today when it comes to requirement gathering. So I'm going to share what the scenario is. I'll also put it in the chat box if anybody has questions. I'll be happy to field those, and then we'll go into our groups. So long wait times are a problem for people at your company when receiving help from the help desk. Your team wants to drive people on your staff to submit tickets digitally and educate and it requires patience to solve their own and educate people that it requires patience to solve their tech problems. Many of your older employers get aggravated at spending so much time waiting online and don't understand why it can't be faster. Your project team has been tasked to begin a campaign encouraging your staff to submit tickets online instead of coming to the physical help desk to get service. $1,000 of funding is secure from your CIO. Project charter is complete, and now you're going to be requirement gathering of how you will communicate this new change to your staff. Using the survey, interviews, and observation model of gathering requirements, how will you begin building out this campaign? So just in short, you're working at a help desk at a large company, and most of your older staff are like not interested in submitting tickets online. They just show up to your desk, and then they get aggravated because sometimes there's 5 people, 10 people in line, and it takes them, an hour plus to get even just to get service, let alone to get the problem fixed. So your project team has said, you know what, let's start a campaign internally to really help people understand if you have a problem with your tech, send a ticket digitally. We can get to it faster. We can solve your problems quicker. How are you going to do that? So you have $1,000 from your CIO to build this campaign for your staff, and how you're going to begin requirement gathering. So what interviews can you do? What surveys can you do? And what observations can you do to make sure that this project is a success? Any questions on that before we go into our groups of 3? All right. I look forward to what you come up with, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Uzman, Karina, Zena, are you there? Uzman, Zena, are you there? Uzman, are you there? Welcome back. Welcome back. We'll let everybody make their way back. Okay, looks like we're all back into the main room. Before we report out on our breakouts and some of the creative ways in which we're going to gather the requirements to make this a successful campaign, I do want to give a quick observation that I've made not just in this class but in other classes as well. In the event that we go to breakout rooms and you don't leave within about 30 to 45 seconds to go into the main room, it doesn't look good. It's like, and especially if I'm saying your name, like, hey, are you there? Are you there? And you're not responding. In the working world, if you were like in a meeting like this and you're gonna go with your colleagues into the breakout rooms and you just like didn't go and the person facilitating the meeting was like, hey, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? It's essentially the same as just walking out of a meeting and like not being there in a physical space. And I understand like maybe you have to use the bathroom, maybe you have to get a cup of water, maybe like a child's crying in your apartment. That's fine. Just in a chat box, say, hey, I'm a little tied up right now, but I'll go to my room here in a moment. That's fine. But it is very career limiting behavior when you're not present and you don't go in your breakout room right away. So just please be mindful of that moving forward. I just want to make sure that you know what's best for everybody, because I have to like then put into your contract, hey, so and so didn't go to their breakout room during the whole entire time we were breakouts, therefore they weren't there. I was calling their name, I was chatting them. So that's report you as left early for the day. So just something to be mindful of. So with that being said, let's hear from room 1, Ashley Bafong, Chelsea B, and Tiana, whoever your spokesperson was. How are you going to gather the requirements to make this a successful campaign?
So for our group, we decided that we would go with observation and survey, a combination.
Okay.
First, we decided we'd do observation first at our office because in the scenario, we didn't really get a true scope of how large the company is.
Yeah.
So we just observed like how many of our older staff come to the help desk and how often, and if it's something that required a ticket or not. Then with the money that we had in our budget for our ticketing system, we said we could put in like some tutorial buttons to help walk them through, since we don't have time to stop and go and teach each one who might have trouble understanding the online ticketing service and go and teach everybody, because again, we don't know the scope of our company and how big it is. So we figured that would be the best option and most cost-effective option to teach everyone and make sure that things run smoothly as we transition into online tickets.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Great job using the word scope, a good project management word. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and give group 1 a clap. Let's hear from room number 4, Ashley, Gavin, Luis, and Manny. What's your game plan for requirement gathering to make sure this campaign goes off well?
We decided to do, depending on the size of the people that had like an issue with it, like either survey or interview. And then with the funding, we would hire somebody to like revamp the system, and with the same fund, like reteach the system, like in a small seminar. That's what we decided upon.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much, Luis. That's really helpful. Let's hear it for that group. Love it. And last group, let's do room 10, Amna, Jesus, and Samaje. Who is your spokesperson?
That would be me, Eric. So we're gonna go based on this project by using all three steps. We're gonna use a survey, and by using the survey, we're gonna send surveys out to employees, customers about how they currently feel about the current system. We'll use interviews by providing a workshop about the process of change, right? So showing them, letting them know that we're actually gonna update and we're gonna go digital. And the last observation would be, right, seeing how people actually react to the new software, testing it out. So.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for that group. I appreciate it. All right, so I have a stretch question for somebody who's feeling courageous and thinks they have a strong handle on this concept. You can raise your digital hand. What happens if you skip this step? What happens if you're like requirement gathering, whatever? I don't need to do interviews. I don't need to do surveys. I don't need to observe. What could possibly go wrong if you just skip over it? Moses, I think you were first.
Yes, you wouldn't have the data necessary to make adequate changes, and you can end up making things more difficult to understand or execute if you don't input from the employees using the software.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you don't get input from the end user, you could be creating something that nobody even wants, right? And that's not good. Amna, what do you think? Amna, are you looking at a skyscraper? Are you there?
Oh, hi. Sorry, the baby started crying.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. So what's going on? Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can put yourself back on mute if you need to. We're just talking about what's the requirement gathering. Why is that important? What happens if you skip that step?
Oh, it's important because like you don't know how the people are going to react. What if they hate your idea and you're the only one who likes it? Like, and what if it doesn't work properly? Like, you need to talk to other people about it to hear their opinions on it before you do anything.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna hit the nail on the head. Appreciate that. Let's do one last comment from Majida, please.
So like first of all, you need that you have the investment coming from somewhere. You're getting the money to do so, but like they won't just like, oh, like, hey, I see that these people are having this problem. They won't just trust your word for it. They need some type of statistical information and like background information, like proving that that's an actual sufficient enough problem, and this actually affecting other aspects of the company and how it could drastically, significantly decrease that problem. And they need like actual information and numbers to back up all of this, and because they're putting in their money and they aren't going to trust you without you actually giving them any amount of information whatsoever. So you need to get that through observation and surveys and interviews.
Excellent, Majida. Great point. And next week we're going to discuss cost benefit analysis and how do you inform the stakeholders and the project sponsors this is the right plan of action. So in the chat box, I want you to imagine that you're the CIO of this scenario. So you've got the $1,000 funding. You've trusted this project team to do this project, and they do it. And then a month later, nothing has changed. People are still coming to the help desk. You're off mute, Moses. People are still coming to the help desk. There's still long lines. People are still aggravated, and nothing changed. How would you feel if you were the CIO? If you put that $1,000 down out of the fund and you did this campaign, and a month later nothing has changed? In the chat box, what do you think you would feel? And Ashley Ross's question, it depends on which model do you use. Do you use waterfall? Do you use agile? If you use agile, you do it throughout the process. Waterfall, you do it in the beginning. Yep, disappointed, betrayed. I would not trust them. Waste of effort, confused, lied to, waste of funding. Yeah, all of the above. So look at some of those words. Now we know why requirement gathering is so critical, because you have to make sure that you're creating something people actually want. All right, we got 3 minutes left. Some quick housekeeping things for next week. Next week, you guys are actually gonna be changing your schedule up a little bit. I'm not sure if Vanessa told you, but normally you go to comms 150 at 10:30. Is that right? On Monday mornings?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm getting it wrong. Let me look at the schedule. I want to make sure I tell you the right information. I don't want to get anybody turned around.
No, actually we have you first.
That's right. Yes. So you normally have me at 10:30 on Mondays. So what you're gonna do is you're actually gonna go to Vanessa at 10:30 on Monday, and she'll probably include this in an email. And then on Monday, everybody, both you and section B, are gonna come to me at 12:30. Okay. So you're gonna have this class at 12:30 on Monday, and you're gonna go to Vanessa at 10:30 instead. And I'll put this in a follow-up correspondence for all of us as well. It's a little bit of a change, and the reason that is because Monday we're gonna have a guest speaker. So Monday we're gonna have a guest speaker. His name is John Bako. I'll give you his quick bio. He was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. He graduated high school in 2011. He joined the Naval Reserves Officer Training Corps at Miami University. In 2015, he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in History, and he was commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. After finishing basic training, he was selected as a combat engineer officer and joined the operating forces in 2016. From 2016 to 2019, he served as an improved ribbon bridge platoon commander. Late in 2019, he was promoted to a captain, and he completed a deployment in Norway, and he is currently stationed in South Bend, Indiana, with his wife and foster daughter, where he is serving as an instructor for Engineer Services Company, Combat Logistics for Battalion 25. So he's a person who is an officer, a captain in the Marines, and does project management for the Marine Corps. And he's going to come speak to all of us about how they do it in the Marines, and it's going to be very applicable as well to the real world. So yeah, Manny is very proud for sure. Yes, only for November 9th, only Monday. Okay, so only was such for that one day. Then we're back to our regular schedule, and then on Wednesday, yeah, the Zoom link will be included in the email. All of that, I'll be sure to follow this all up. And then next week, Wednesday, there is no class. Okay, There is no class for Veterans Day. There's no program. So Monday, 10:30, you have Vanessa. 12:30, you come to me with section B. John will speak to us about how the Marines do project management, and then we'll that'll be our class for the day. No class on Wednesday. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I'll see you later on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.